Right, I think we can begin. Yeah. I'm very glad to see this room so full, because indeed we've got a very distinguished guest today. I welcome everyone on behalf of the Institute of English Studies. We are delighted to have you all here, and the event will be really hosted by Dr. Marcin Jaroszek, who will introduce Helen Doron, educator, entrepreneur, and a very, very, very inspiring figure. So enjoy it.
Good morning, still before noon. Well, it's a great pleasure to be here and to have an opportunity to welcome you to today's lecture at our institute. Allow me to introduce Helen Doron. To many, Helen is a linguist, an educator. To me, a visionary that many years ago saw the potential for young learners to grasp the complexities of English in a natural or naturalistic and definitely in a more enjoyable way. With over 3 decades of experience and a network of learning centers in more than 30 or even 40 countries now, I guess.
40 is during this month.
Yeah. Her impact on the field of language training is nothing short of extraordinary. Today we have the opportunity to hear from the woman that turned the ABCs of teaching English to young learners into a global phenomenon. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Helen Doron. Helen.
Should I use? Should I be using this one? I had to use this microphone.
It's up to you.
I should use one of these?
We have an abundance of microphones. This one is working definitely, and if it's...
Yep.
Now it's okay.
Brilliant. Okay, can you hear me better?
Yes.
Yes. Better than before? Excellent. Okay. Because I understand to move things backwards, forwards, it's just the mouse, or there's something else I can use?
I think, intuitively, you can use this
one. This one. Can you see it?
Just have to try it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. Okay. So thank you very much. As I said, I started in... Next year it'll be 40 years. Since I started the method, and I'd like to, and many of you have, some of you maybe, have learnt with our methodology as students, young kids. Can I see hands if anyone was a young kid and learnt with us? 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so some of you have actually been through our system in Poland, because Joanna here, Asha as you would probably call her, was a real visionary for Poland and brought Helen Doron English to Poland 26 years ago. Incredible. She trained in Germany in 1998 and started out. Absolutely wonderful. And she was already a master franchisee 25 years ago. So that's good. I'd like to start by giving you a vision of what we can get to with young kids. Because we know we learn, and we have learning centres here. And at the end I'll talk to you a little bit about what we do, our organisation. But here are some of the kids that have been with us in South Korea for a few years in our own kindergarten called Helen Doron International. Yes. Well, maybe it's this one. Yes. Let's see if the video works. Here it is. Just see how comfortable they are in English. These are kids who are learning always and never. You should
always get even with your friends. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, next one. Betray your friends. Betray your friends. Should you always betray your friends? Never betray your friends. Girls, can you tell me, can you read or say your sentence? You should. We should never betray your friends. Boys and so young, what do you think? We should never betray your your friends? So if a friend does something mean to you, you want to do something mean back?
Yeah.
You think that's okay?
Yeah.
You think that makes a good friendship? It's a hard word.
Mention.
Mention. Very good. Mention. Who thinks they know what mention is? Or past tense. How do I make this past tense?
Mention.
Very good. Mention. And tell me, I'm going to say a word. You tell me if it's mentioned on this piece of paper, okay? Trap. Is trap mentioned on here? Show me. Very good, Soyoung. Yeah, say trap is mentioned here.
He betrayed them. How did he betray them? I forgot to say. How did he do that?
Go say it.
Set called Tale of Two Tales. I just wanted to show you that when we talk about teaching English, what we mean. And because it's not obvious. I mean, I was talking in Moscow before the war broke out there. And I was at a conference, and somebody approached me afterwards, a very nice man. He'd said he had 2 English kindergartens, and I said, oh, that's interesting, can I go and see? So the next morning before the lectures continued, I went with him and to see these kindergartens, at least one of them. And I walked into a class of 3-year-olds and they couldn't say a word. And I said to him afterwards, so when will these kids start speaking English? And he said, oh, maybe in 2 years. I mean, there's teaching English and there's teaching English. So let's look at what our expectations are and where we think we're going with this. Okay, what's our vision? Well, our vision is to give children of all ages the very best education so that they will have a life of freedom and joy. English is a way. We also teach Spanish, by the way, now as well. It's a means. It's a means for educating a child's brain with things which are going to develop him at an early age. And on the way they learn excellent English. This is done through special teaching methodologies and fantastic educational content that expands the children's abilities. This provides a platform for reaching the fullest mental, physical and emotional potential. That's always been my goal. I was approached here by somebody just a few minutes ago who said that she'd had a child born with certain disabilities, and if she'd have listened to the doctors he wouldn't be what he is today, but luckily she'd done the training course with me and knew how to push this kid forward. The ignorance is killing me. It kills me when kids that could have been brilliant and geniuses and led a normal life don't. Or kids that lead a normal life don't excel in many different ways that they could do. And this is what I want to get to. So this is about what we're talking about today. The science behind our programs, benefits of bilingualism, foundation of the methodology, Helen Doron English, how it relates to child development, other programs based on our methodology, and looking forward, and of course questions and answers. So let's start with some of the science. This isn't working, it's not set out, so some of this is quite technical explanation, so I have it open in front of me. So let's have a look at this. Neurodidactica, it's called, I think, in this country. And it's big in Poland, and I know lots of people here do it, and it's wonderful that we've got here eventually the connection between brain, how the brain works and how we're meant to educate. Finally, people are there, and I'm very happy about this. So educational neuroscience, or neurodidactica as you call it, explores how and why teaching strategies work. It's an emerging multidisciplinary field aimed at linking research in neuroscience, psychology, cognitive sciences in general, and educational technologies. We have a look at we have to see how one's meant to teach and what the right way of teaching is for the brain. So, successful teaching strategies. Now, we today, each of us has about 86 billion neurons. Of course, we can't imagine that. That's far too much for our brain. If I were to show you 1,000 dots on a page, you wouldn't be able to take that in either, so 86 billion is enormous. But in early pregnancy, 250,000 neurons are being made every minute. And as these neurons mature, more connections or synapses are made. So the majority of the remaining neurons are actually produced during a short time after birth, as little as a few months or as much as a year. So, and the brain produces many, many more connections that it needs, and these will eventually be pruned. We'll talk about that later. Harvard University has a centre called the Centre on the Developing Child, which is quite an interesting name, and it shows the relationship between the way the brain has the ability, the flexibility of the brain, and the amount of effort that such changes require. And we see that, obviously, the earlier the better. By the age of 30, we've sort of reached the point where it's a big effort to make changes, but the best years are ages up to the age of, we can see here, 4, 6 for brain development. And those are the ages that people don't teach things. Or if they do teach things, well, the kids learn the whole time. There's no overt teaching. They often do it the wrong way. And this brought people like Waldorf to say, don't put any pressure on the child, let him learn naturally, because people pressuring the children, much like you see in Asian countries today. If you go to South Korea, I walked into a classroom in South Korea, nothing to do with us, not ours, because they take kids into kindergarten. So it was 3-year-olds, rows of tiny desks. This kindergarten had a very small play area. They sat and learned all day. I was so sorry for them. And they weren't learning in a brain-friendly manner. They were learning in the way the parents and the teachers perceived that they would learn, not the way that children learn. And it's very sad. And you get this, you get children growing up unhappy. And the highest suicide rate is in countries like South Korea for children, child suicide rate. Imagine you put all that into your kid and he jumps out a window. Why? Because he can't take the pressure, he's unhappy, his brain's unhappy, his brain doesn't know what it is to have a positive experience. And so obviously one has to find the correct way to teach so that children learn naturally and enjoy it. So when kids are little, parents automatically have this serve and return. That's like in ping pong or in tennis or in badminton or whatever. The parent says something, the child retorts, comes back, the parent responds to that, the child responds to that, and that's the learning process when they're very little. And it's a fun and capacity building interaction. And they're giving an environment, parents and caretakers, rich in this serve and return experience. This is seen today as a learning technique. Now let's have a look at the chemistry of actually how we learn. The actual chemistry. What we see here is that a neuron will connect under the condition that there are enough sparks or stimulation. Okay, this is the sparks of stimulation. This is the synapse at the end of a neuron, and it can't get to there's nothing between them. What triggers the chemical neurotransmitter, the drift across, is the synaptic gap, is experience. A positive, fun, innovative experience triggers dopamine and endorphins because of learning that is fun and sensory. And if we go further, I'm going to connect all this back later. This isn't just random. We repeat and gain the signals, and we help create stronger and more condensed neuroconnectors. Neurotransmitters are chemicals that make different chemical reactions in your brain, allowing you to think, do, and remember. And the neurotransmitters are stimulated, as I said, by fun, multisensory learning. And there's a flood of chemicals that stimulate, motivate. And learning promotes more learning. So, if I can move on, there are actually 3 areas of memory. We're going to move on to memory now. Sensory memory is very brief, up to about 10 seconds. Short-term memory takes over when the information in our sensory memory is transferred to our conscious memory. Okay? The short-term memory has a significant roles in mental calculation, reading comprehension, following instructions. But how does it get to long-term memory? How does that happen? Okay, so let's have a look. It gets to long-term by repeatedly doing things again and again. It's relatively permanent and unlimited storage that we have inside. And we get there by repetition that's multisensory, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, smell, whatever. And that's how things go to long-term memory. And these are neurodidactic techniques that are used today in learning, and we've been using them for many, many years. I mean, if you think about it, this would be the sensory memory. If this works, maybe not. So on the left we have the sensory, the very, very short-term memory. It's the sensory memory. The short-term memory, this will be a highway there. And long-term memory is, of course, a much, much more complex network inside us. Multisensory learning promotes cognitive development, which is part of overall brain development. And cognitive development involves how children think, learn, and work. And problem solving. So, as you can see, multisensory isn't sitting behind desks and just working on paper. Multisensory is moving, smelling, doing, interacting. That's multisensory. And yes, you can have fun with the paper and doing things, but it's not multisensory. You want to embed something, it needs to be more embedded over time through many different types of experiences. Let's have a look at this.
A child's experiences during the earliest years of life have a lasting impact on the architecture of the developing brain. Genes provide the basic blueprint, but experiences shape the process that determines whether a child's brain will provide a strong or weak foundation for all future learning, behavior, and health. During this important period of brain development, billions of brain cells called neurons send electrical signals to communicate with each other. These connections form circuits that become the basic foundation of brain architecture. Circuits and connections proliferate at a rapid pace and are reinforced through repeated use. Our experiences and environment dictate which circuits and connections get more use. Connections that are used more grow stronger and more permanent. Meanwhile, connections that are used less fade away through a normal process called pruning. Well-used circuits create lightning-fast pathways for neural signals to travel across regions of the brain. Simple circuits form first, providing a foundation for more complex circuits to build on later. Through this process, neurons form strong circuits and connections for emotions, motor skills, behavioral control, logic, language, and memory during the early critical period of development. With repeated use, these circuits become more efficient and connect to other areas of the brain more rapidly. While they originate in specific areas of the brain, the circuits are interconnected. You can't have one type of skill without the others to support it. Like building a house, everything is connected, and what comes first forms a foundation for all that comes later.
Okay. So, more about multisensory learning, and babies learn more through multisensory learning than they will do through single-sense learning. This is all research. I have a bibliography if anyone is interested in the bibliography. And it's obvious that children use all their senses when exploring their environment. That's when you have a baby. He gets a toy, he bites it, he smells it, he throws it, he does all he can with it. He's exploring it from every level. And scientific research by Judy Willis and others show that elaborate brain connections form when Oh, I meant to use this, Hello, is that better? Yeah. Sorry. Scientific research by Willis and others show that elaborate brain connections form when multisensory learning occurs compared to single-sensory learning. Okay, so multisensory learning reaches visual learners, auditory learners, tactile learners, and physical or kinesthetic learners. And children are always kinesthetic, always. They also have other primary means of learning, but they're always mainly kinesthetic. Okay, the brain. We're having a closer look at it, about the amygdala and the hippocampus and their role in the learning process. They're both located in the temporal lobe, and the hippocampus is looking for new things. It's a novelty connector. It's saying, is there something new? Is there something interesting? What am I going to learn from this? And it decides where the information should be stored. And the amygdala is responsible for stress, which can block the hippocampus. No new learning and no retrieval of existing information. That means when a kid is stressed, he can't learn. He can't even pick up new things because the amygdala is going to block the work of the hippocampus. I had an experience many years ago when I first started teaching one of my first groups. I had a small group of kids. And I was moving from, we had a set called English for All Children, and I was moving from book 2 to 3, which, all those who are teachers here will have been with us for many years. Remember, book 2 had a strong emphasis on parts of the body, and book 3 went on to other things. I said, I can't move on yet. I don't think they really can say all the names of the body, parts of the body yet, and they're a bit stuck there. I wanted them to know better. And so I created a whole lesson the way that people were doing it all on body parts. I had a memory game, and a puzzle game, and a running game, and a please game, and 3/4 of an hour of all games on parts of the body. Came to the end, they were fluent. I was so pleased, I thought I'd done really well. Patted myself on the back and said, well, that was worth the effort, wasn't it? That was an interesting experiment. We don't normally teach like that. We normally teach a little bit of this, 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 and move on and make sure the child has something new. But I thought I did it. I did a different type of lesson and I'm pleased with myself. And then the strangest thing happened. The kids said to me, what do you mean the lesson's finished but we haven't learnt anything new? Because the kids said that to me. Really, that's what they said to me. And I looked at them in amazement, because I'd never said to them, every lesson you're going to learn something new. It was part of it and they were expecting it. And they said, yes, but I said, but you didn't know how to say shoulders like that before, and you weren't as fluent, you couldn't connect the words. And they said, yes, but we didn't learn anything new. And I'm sitting there thinking, what are they talking about? And then it occurred to me, they meant they needed something which was completely and utterly new, new material. They were actually verbally demanding it. So that was for me a big lesson, and later on I'm going to talk about spiral learning. And it was a very big lesson for me. Anyway, how to stimulate intrinsic motivation. Well, we know that as educators in things like Waldorf, or people who have kids in various schools, they will say it's uninterrupted, creative, free play, and I would agree with them. However, in our lessons, we can't just have uninterrupted, creative, free play, because we've got a 3/4 of an hour lesson and we have an agenda, what to teach them and what the goal of the lesson is. So we need to have something which is going to promote the wow of learning, and we have strong scaffold. We need scaffolding for that to help and promote and support in perfect balance. And also kids react well to values, even young kids. They sense the values when you're teaching them something which is valuable to them and their environment, beyond English, for example. They will sense that too and appreciate it. Even if they're really young, it's very interesting. Okay, now let's have a few words about bilingualism. Were any of you here brought up as bilingual? 3, 4, 5. Good. 6. Okay. Have any of you got bilingual children? You have. Okay, super. Bilingualism is a subject which, once upon a time, people thought it wasn't good to speak more than one language, and there were a few reasons for that. Mostly it was socioeconomic. They were Puerto Ricans in America, and they weren't doing as well in school as the kids who were just American and speaking just one language, and the conclusion was, it's not good to be bilingual. It's like the scientific experiment where it's a horrible thing. Actually, I'm not going to give that example. But it's how to take the wrong conclusion from data, you know. So it turns out that the kids weren't doing so well because the parents didn't have the money, they didn't have the opportunities that the others had. It was completely different. Today, people don't look at bilingualism like that. In today's world, people see it as a benefit. Okay, we see the advantage. So let's have a look at this. I think most of you will have seen this before, but let's watch it all the same. It's Professor Cool talking a little bit about bilingualism. Oh, sorry, I muted it. Now I muted it. But maybe it doesn't need accidentally. It doesn't really matter. Oh, there. Okay, thank you. Doesn't matter. It'll be a TV without. Maybe we can watch this one. You've unmuted it?
Yes, let's try. You haven't muted it.
Oh, here, I'll do it here next time. Okay. Is that better? Advantages of bilingualism. Let's have a look at them. Okay. Bilingualism enhances cognitive development, improves language skills, increases cultural awareness, improves access to increased job opportunities, and enhances executive functioning in children. Executive functioning means that they can control their behavior better. You know, the famous experiments where you put a kid in a room with sweets and say, don't eat them until I get back, and you come back and see how many they've eaten and who's eaten them. The bilingual children will probably have greater self-control there. And research shown that bilingual children outperform monolingual children in various languages and cognitive tasks. And if we promote bilingualism in early childhood education, children can develop the skills they need to succeed in the diverse and globalized world, as long as being a lot cleverer. And it should be, so we would like to, so this is very important. What is bilingualism? I'm talking about up to the age of 7, and we'll look for true bilingualism, not just speaking a language well. I speak French extremely well, but I'm not a true bilingual. When I go and start learning a new language, my French will disappear until I'm good at that other language. Bilingual children are strong creative storytellers, and they use as many words as monolingual children when telling a story, demonstrating a very high level of cognitive flexibility. And the number of words that bilingual children use in their stories is highly correlated with their cognitive flexibility, that is, the ability to switch between thinking about different concepts. They're very good at the medium of storytelling, and vocabulary is a very strong predictor of doing well in school. And the results are that parents of bilingual children don't need to be concerned about their long-term school achievement. To a certain degree, they have already got a big advantage over the monolingual children. And bilingual children use the same amount of words as the monolingual children do in that specific language. If they're living in Poland and they're German-Polish bilingual, for example, they will have just as many words in Polish. They may have slightly less in German because they don't live in Germany, but they're still bilingual. They're not lacking in words or anything. They've just got twice as many. And this is very important. They've got double the knowledge. And trilingual children, even more. Here again, we have Kovac and Mela. Even before they speak, bilingual children develop stronger executive functions than monolinguals. This is exactly what I said before. And we have at the bottom my grandchild, Rohan, who's just turning this month. He's turning 10. But when he was 26 months, we were waiting for our food in a restaurant, and we decided to show how he's code switched between 3 different languages. The different languages that he knew as a child and moved very fast, Hebrew, English and Korean. You could not have 3 completely different language families. And it's just to demonstrate how he code switches. Real plastic. Big stick. You see it's plastic? Plastic. Plastic, yes. What sort of birdie is it? It's a booby birdie. Yes, it's a booby birdie.
Yes, yes, yes.
No. Yes, yes, yes. No. The 2-year-old, it's no.
The Shalima?
Maze?
The Shalwani?
이거는 싸바과야.
Okay. Just to show you beyond the theoretical, what it looks like when a young child code switches.
Can I add one thing to it? Because
Yes.
I find it always fascinating that children pick the language that they're used to with a certain person. So he spoke in English to you because that's the language that he connected with. He spoke Hebrew to his dad, and he spoke Korean to his mother. So it's not mixing languages, it's just connecting the language together with a person.
Yes,
And
they
that's quite
normally do that.
fascinating.
Yes. I mean, children work out their own theories. Ted used to say that his children thought that because he spoke English and the mother spoke German, he thought that women spoke German and men spoke English. But to a certain age. For some reason we seem to be stuck. Move this out. Good. Now my favourite piece of research, because it's such an effective one. This is very famous research done by Johnson and Newport. It's been replicated many times because it was so interesting, and they always got similar results. Johnson and Newport took adults, who were all postgraduates at the University of, where was it, Iowa? Anyway, they were all at a university. They'd all come from Korea or China at some point. Some had arrived at the age of 3, some had arrived at the age of 8, some had arrived at the age of 20, some at the age of 30. And they're all meant to be very, very good at English because they're studying at the university, they've done their degrees there, they're doing their postgrad there. They'd all been there for many years. They took people who they didn't take people who just arrived, but people who'd been there for many years. And they took many sentences. There were 270 sentences that represented 12 grammatical sentence structures, and they were yes-no questions. Things like, which is the correct one? It was always the yes-no for the correct. I allow you to go there, or I let you to go there. Things that are a little bit technical and difficult that foreign speakers often get them wrong. And there was all these sentences. The only ones that did, like the native speakers, in fact slightly better, were those who'd arrived up to the age of 7 in the United States and stayed there. They were native speaker-like in their understanding of grammar, in their intuitive and quick understanding. They had to answer very quickly, they didn't have time to analyse. Those who'd arrived at the age of 8 to 10, I mean, they're all adults. This is the age of arrival in the US. There's a drop, there's a much steeper drop for the older kids and an even steeper drop for the teens and older people. The only age in which you could learn grammar as a mother tongue and understand it, for the feel of it at mother tongue level, was up to the age and inclusive of the age of 7. And this is very important to what we're doing, and I'll come back to it. So let's have a look at the methodology. For about 40 years now, I'm a trained linguistic scientist. That doesn't really exist too much in the world. They've taken the science out of it in many places, and it's all, what do they call it today, practical linguistics, or linguistics for teaching, or linguistics for that. Much less of the science today. I was horrified to see what happened at Reading, which was such a wonderful department. Anyway, so linguistic science from Reading University in the heydays. I had top professors. It was a wonderful, wonderful time. I have MA in linguistic science as well, and I also taught French in a university in France. I've raised 3 children, and I focused on early child development and saw how children were learning English in many different countries, and it wasn't working because they were learning it in the wrong way and too late. So, what was the best way to teach English? I was inspired by a Japanese man called Dr. Shinichi Suzuki, nothing to do with the cars. It's a very common surname, Suzuki. And this is my daughter Ella, exactly 40 years ago. And she was 4 years old. And Dr. Suzuki, my mother's husband at the time, she's had a few, was a violinist and a violin collector, and everything was violins, the whole world was violins. So it was obvious she had to learn the violin, and I found a system whereby they learned by listening to the sounds and learnt notation later. I thought that's wonderful, because that's what I'd lacked. I played the piano for 11 years, and I'd reached a high technical level. I couldn't play by ear. I thought, this is wonderful, this would train the ear from an early age. So I took her there, and while I was there, I had my 3rd child already in arms, and I read all the books on the shelf about early child development, and I was excited. Dr. Suzuki taught music like language. He said, how does a child learn his mother tongue? Through repeated background hearing and positive reinforcement. So I said, well, that's what we've got. So then he applied that to music. They listened again and again and again to this music. And he motivated through teachers that he trained with positive reinforcement. And I said, my God, we're teaching. We're teaching the language of music. So why aren't we teaching the music of language? And that's what I set about doing. But on the way, I looked at all sorts of different approaches to education. And now there was a guy called Glenn Doman from the Institutes for the Achievement of Human Potential in Philadelphia. He was a physical therapist, and he helped kids and adults who were physically disabled get up and walk. And he did it through a methodology where they start by putting themselves with their arms, and it takes them half a year to learn to do this. And then he gets them crawling on all fours, then he gets them standing, and this can take 2 or 3 years, the whole process. And a little boy called Tommy was brought to him. And Tommy was in a wheelchair, mentally handicapped and physically disabled. He was 2 years old, and the doctors had told his parents to put him away. He wasn't going to live very long either, and they should look after the other 3 children they had. But the parents didn't give up on Tommy, and when Glenn Doman said they could get him physically active, they thought that was very important. So they brought him. And Glenn Doman started by teaching Tommy how to pull himself along on his hands. And 6 months later, the father came back with him and said, Tommy can do this, but his mother's also taught him how to read words. And Glenn Doman said, yeah, right, he's a brain injured kid, learned to reading words, forget it. Okay, he said, let's try and get him up on all fours. They come back 9 months later, Tommy can crawl on all fours, which is a fantastic thing, and he says, mother's taught him how to read books. He said, yeah, right. Comes back, Tommy can read, he's nearly 4 years old, and he said, he's reading magazines. And he said, and Helen Doron was also skeptical, so Tommy's father wrote something on the board, and Tommy sped read it and laughed because it was a joke. And Helen Doron said, "Oh, why didn't you tell me?" And Tommy in the end went to a special school for geniuses, from vegetable to genius, and Helen Doron said, "Wow, what are we doing wrong with education? Well, we can stimulate a brain in this way, through physical activity, through reading, when we're stimulating the neural pathways in such a manner. Look what we can get to. We can have," and he did it, he said, children with half a brain in a jar, they had to take it out in those days, they used to do it, and they can still become geniuses. What's wrong with our normal children? And I thought, wow. And this has inspired me, and I know it's helped so many others. Is it nature or nurture? And he went around the world looking at kids. What is learning? How much is genes and how much is environment? And because we're short on time, I'm just going to say that it's mainly environment. A main brain growth is until the age of 6 or 7, and it's the intensity, frequency and duration of the experience that creates the ability for the brain to develop. We see long-term memory, neural pathways, novelty, stimulation, everything we've talked about. And patterning. He takes very highly brain damaged babies and he patterns cross hand to knee, foot to shoulder, etc. Has to cross to get the two parts of the brain stimulated and working together. And another valuable lesson I learned from Doron. He said, it isn't because we're very motivated, we're successful. Success brings motivation. The children need to feel successful in order to be motivated to continue. And he gives many examples, which I won't do because of short time. But this is very important in lessons. Teachers say, he's very motivated, so he'll do well. What's motivating him? If you get a kid, the average kid, and criticize him the whole time, boy, is he not going to be motivated. He just thinks, okay, this is failure number 360, and I'm going to be 6 next time you ask me this question. Okay? So, how do you support the kids? Okay. Now, language is the most complicated of all skills, and up to fairly recently, computers couldn't deal with it. Computers are dealing wonderfully with language today. It's quite scary. And brain stimulation plays a major role in brain growth. Because it's such a complicated skill, language, because it's such a complicated skill, children are learning phonetics, phonology, morphology, semantics, grammar, everything at the same time. It's incredibly complicated. It's much more complicated than maths. Much more complicated than maths. And children do it well. Even brain-damaged children do it well because they're exposed to it at an early age again and again and in the right way. So, a few words about Helen Doron, English. We teach from 3 months to 19 years. Why not before 3 months? Normally because it's a bit difficult to get the mother out, the baby out. It's even difficult in the first year with kids falling asleep at odd moments. You know, it's difficult logistically. We've created materials from babies all the way up to teens. Our teachers are trained in positive reinforcement as well as in the materials, which isn't as obvious as it seems. And some teachers can't get it and they don't qualify. You have to be able to uplift the child and know how to give the feedback in a way in which the child's going to feel successful even when he's made a big mistake. So, as well as be able to do so. And there has to be new things in every lesson, as I said. I'll always remember another example of new. I had a 2-year-old who was extremely hyperactive. He was actually, in early days, we used to mix the age groups a lot more. And he was actually with a group of 4 or 5-year-olds. And they'd be in the lesson, getting up and moving and doing and interacting, and he'd be circling the room like an aeroplane the whole time. Vroom. The only time this aeroplane came into land was when I taught something new, but totally new, and he knew when it was new. And then he would be off again, circling the room. So I just let him do his thing, and everyone let him do his thing. And he learnt that way. But he obviously learnt a lot faster than the others. He could have learnt a lot more. Our teacher trainers are extremely physical. Just give you 30 seconds of this, otherwise it takes too long. This is a teacher trainer conference. We have them once a year. From different countries, all over the world. Bunch, because you have to be. But the trained teachers are going to be pretty crazy bunches as well. And our methodology is natural, based on the way kids learn naturally. And when we talk about baby courses, for example, just an example of a course, it's 10 in 1 course. We don't just teach English words. It's built on songs. Everything we do is musical. A, because I like music, and B, because I think that's the best way to learn. Songs, chants, rhymes, games, physical activities, because it's 10 in 1, because emotional responses here improves through songs and games, and encourages self-expression and communication. We use baby sign language for pre-verbal communication. And the movement and balance are developed through the vestibular system, so many different vestibular system activities of rocking and doing. Counting is taught in a sensory manner. Cognitive skills are fostered and enhanced. The 5 senses are stimulated and celebrated, I would say. Comprehensive knowledge we have of animals, birds and flowers. We call it encyclopedic knowledge, because that's what little kids love. They love these little bits of knowledge and learning them separately. Rhymes and nursery rhymes contribute to pre-reading phonemic awareness, and language skills are developed for the richness of understanding and expression, and parent-child bonds are strengthened. We call this a 10 in 1 course. You cannot teach a language separate from life. And this is what kids need to learn at this moment in life. And instead of them going to this course for this or this course for this, we push it all into one. Why baby sign language? Because they can express themselves at an early age, and also because research has shown that that the IQ points are higher in babies. Kids that were signers as a child, and the signers were in the top 25% of 8-year-olds when tested later, and even verbal skills were higher in children who'd done baby signing rather than children who'd had a course in verbal skills at the same age. So sign language is another language of sorts. It stimulates the baby's brains and they're able to express themselves. And they tell the mother they've got a pain in their ear, for example, whereas the mother might just wonder why his kid's screaming. So our methodology is based on repeated background hearing. That's done while the child's eating, sleeping, playing, going to bed. And when they come to the lesson, the words are in their head. The music's in their head. The sentences are in their head. They don't know what they mean. And that's what the teacher does. But it's in their head, so it's really, really fast. You can see a kid who's not doing his background hearing. It sticks out. They don't pick it up as fast, they don't behave as well because they're trying to show that they can't, that they don't know, they're trying to hide the fact they don't know stuff. Yes, as well. Positive reinforcement from the teachers, and that therefore the children are motivated by their success. First they're successful, at least they perceive themselves as successful, and then they're motivated. Always success. The environment needs to be stress-free so that the amygdala doesn't block them. They need to feel happy. They know this is a safe environment that they're not going to be criticised in. Learning has to be fun and new. And small group learning is important, although we also have materials today for large group learning, which we didn't used to have. Because in schools, this is often needed. And peer learning, especially with teens. Kids learn from each other. Now, because we're running out of time, I'm going to skip over the whole section on child development. Just we have milestones just so you can see. And according to the age group, we will teach them various things according to what they're meant to learn in each of the songs. And I'm just going to skip over this, but sorry, it's going to take forever to skip over this. As you can see, we teach according to what's needed. And there's one more thing I'd like to talk about before I stop for questions, is spiral learning. This is really hard for the people in East, in Japan, Korea, China. For them it's mastery. What I was doing in that lesson, but in a less fun manner, they have to know something perfectly before they can move on to the next one. It's not the way kids learn naturally, and it's not the way that novelty is going to be allowed to make it interesting for the children. But it's the way they're used to, and therefore it's hard for them to let go of it. We teach colours in a lesson, and the next lesson we'll teach colours again, but in a different way, and maybe in the next unit we'll come back to colours again, but we'll teach it with another few colours added, and the next year we'll add it in. So this is spiral learning rather than anything else. I'm going to jump over these because we don't have time. And also, words are spiral learning. I mean, you can go into Korea, in a class in Korea, and a mother will break in and say, but she's already learnt the word train. Why are you teaching train? She's learnt it already. You'd never see this in Poland, I don't think, or anywhere in Europe, but parents are really focused on that one or two kids that they have. So a train, yeah, we know it's a line of carriages, but it can be other things. What else can a train be?
Train of thought.
A train of thought, that's a metaphor. What else can train be?
A long line moving.
Hmm?
A long line moving.
Okay, yes, absolutely. What else?
A bird.
What?
A caterpillar.
A train? A caterpillar can be a train? That's interesting. It looks like one. Exercise. It can also, yeah, it can also mean to exercise, to train. So it's to become physically fit. We can have, as you said, a train of thought. A train is in Queen Victoria's day with the back of the dress. She had a train. Queen Diana got married and had a train at the back of her dress. And it wasn't a choo-choo train. And it can also train plants to grow in a particular direction. So words have many meanings, different. Every environment you find it in will give it a slightly different shade. Okay, I think that because of this I have to actually just check. We have just a few words about us. We have our own radio station for teens. Those of you who don't know it might enjoy it for yourselves. It's for teens and for the young at heart. Teen Buzz Radio. Just look up Teen Buzz. There's an app, Teen Buzz, as well, that you can download. It's every day. We have Candy Club with songs. We have our song club, sorry. We have Candy Club, which is free educational interactive games. All our video and audio media is on Helen Doron Stream, which only our students can download. And there are various apps which support our learning. Okay. This is Kovac. Should I jump over this? Okay, just a last thing that they introduced in kindergartens. Judith Kovac in Hungary did research. It's a different Kovac from the Kovac from Mela. It's a different lady. It's not the same. It's different. It's not the same. It's like looking for your it's like trying to open the television with your phone. If anybody's tried that. Okay, so a Hungarian researcher, Professor Judith Kovac, evaluated the effectiveness and success of 4 different early English language learning programs in Hungarian kindergartens, and she found Helen Doron English to be the most effective, even though Helen Doron English was only given once a week, and the others were, 2 of the others were given more than once a week, and one was even given every day. One was daily, and her conclusion was that very young learners need specially trained teachers who follow a special curriculum. It has to be a special focused curriculum. You have to know where you're going. Key factors of success that children have access to a well-designed and elaborated curriculum with a clear purpose. And the kids participating in the Helen Doron English programs were the most successful. And I'm going to have to stop there because we have run out of time. Although maybe just show what our other programs are very briefly. Helen Doron English is what is well known here. We also in Poland have Math Riders, which is also a multi-sensory approach to mathematics. And we have many centres for it. We're beginning to teach Helen Doron Spanish also in our English centres now, and Helen Doron Academy and International, our Academy is bilingual school education from an early age, which we have our special musical science programs, etc. We have International, which is all English, it's the same thing. But we have many different programs as well, not just the language programs. Okay, I'm sorry it's taken so long. Do you have any questions? Yes, please.
Oh, first of all, thank you so much for coming all this way here. It feels so surreal having you in Poland with all of us. I think we're all so thrilled to meet you in person.
I used to come the whole time many years ago. I used to be here a lot.
Oh, then you're basically a Pole, yeah. And I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned that you speak French.
Yeah.
How many languages do you speak, and what is your favorite one?
I speak 3 languages fluently. At the moment I'm learning Korean because I have a Korean daughter-in-law and I can't speak to her mother because she doesn't speak a word of anything but Korean. And it's an excuse to watch Korean dramas if anybody's but my favourite one's English. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
If I may, I just have a kind of reflection, something that made me think while I was listening to your talk. Thank you very much for the talk. It's really interesting, very inspiring. I've been wondering about the realities and the context in which young children learn foreign languages today. And specifically, I mean the omnipresent exposure to or access to mobile technologies, and whether this fact has in any way impacted on your teaching philosophy or methodology, or changed in any way the way today's kids respond to your methodology?
I don't think so. I think that there's a lot of online learning today, and we actually have another organisation which for some reason I didn't put in there, I don't know how I missed it. It's called Helen Doron Connect. It's not a different methodology, it's just a different company, in which we take our lessons and they're interactive, and we have a teacher online, and we're also creating asynchronous learning, because a lot of schools today are asking for this. A lot of schools don't have English. I don't know about in Poland, but in other countries there's unbelievably a big shortage of English teachers. And there's a need for it. I think that parents really want the kids to have the face-to-face sensory experience more than anything else. I think that remains. When parents can, and when they have the opportunity, they will enroll them. Whether or not we can open up to education in many other countries that can't afford us, or can't even afford the online version of us, through asynchronous teaching is something to be looked at, because then we can get into Africa and other countries and really help change the face of educational opportunities for children worldwide, which we can't do at present, because there's a price behind everything we do. But otherwise, I think in all the countries we're in, nothing replaces face-to-face contact and interaction. We're social animals, despite what they say.
But on the other hand, this is helpful because this is another way of immersion. And they are so much eager to get to all these new media, and English is everywhere, so they just use it. And they are immersed all the time, and they're exposed to English much more often.
It
does with English, maybe not so much with Spanish, at least not yet.
I think that's true, and we also have our own media which we try to immerse children in, with the Kanki Club, as I mentioned, which is interactive games. We use our smartphones and tablets for our streaming, and we have our radio, and we try by as many means as possible to immerse the children in language as well. So it will have an effect, but I don't think it's affecting enrollment in lessons. Parents and kids need this interaction.
So you think that the success of this methodology depends hugely on parents' involvement, right? And
they have to enroll them, unless they're teens and they insist. You know, but parents have to enroll them, put them in the car, bring them. You know, parents have to be involved. And if they can't do that because they are too busy to do so, or because they're not interested in doing so, then this will limit the child's exposure, and they will find other ways to do so. Quite often that's when they need an online teaching, because the parent doesn't have the time and the ability, or they're not near a centre. So everything's needed in its own place. Yes?
So first of all, thank you so much for being here and for your message that is very positive and full of hope, especially this message about children who are born with disabilities, and there is hope for them. I think in our society today we like to condemn these children who are conceived already, and during pregnancy there's a lot of doctors say this child will be disabled, its life will be worthless, and unfortunately there's also this message in the world today. So thank you for giving us this hope. I also work with children with disabilities, and I see that there's also, it's not just us who give something to them, but like one girl who I'm in touch with, she has Down syndrome. She was the first person who actually gave me a hug when I was living abroad, and that brought me a lot of joy and love, and I started feeling at home. Thanks to this girl. But the question I wanted to ask, what was the biggest challenge for you in developing this method?
The method itself, the methodology itself was easy, it was obvious. Creating the materials was fun, but I had to live from something. My husband threw himself in with me, and he started to support the warehouse and the finance and this, and it was creating a business. I think that for the first 15 years of when we were working, we were more like an educational charity than anything else. I was a teacher and I really didn't want to make too much money out of it because it was wrong, and we were selling the materials. And then my neighbour, who was an accountant, said, "You can't live from this, you've got to introduce royalties, you're giving a service. And you can see you can't live from this." And I was going, "Oh no, I can't do that." You know, and it was basically grasping that without money, nothing moved. And money was the means. And it's still the means. And it's still the means, because I'm approached by people quite regularly about mergers, buyouts, things. And you have to look at them, and I'm constantly saying to people, that's not my vision. It's not my vision. You know, this isn't it. Unless you're offering me something which is going to be able to expand the vision and move to bigger places, forget it. Because it's not the vision. It's all about the vision. And it remains the vision. And I was just discussing that with my son, who's running Helen Doron Korea. And yeah, the person running this organization has to be someone who believes in the vision, whatever you do. So, and it remains so because that's what we're doing. It's a legacy. Every single one of you who's working with us is part of this organization, and it's a wonderful coming together, gathering of like people. I remember at a franchise conference, one of my new staff said to me, "Where did you find these wonderful people that they're so dedicated?" And I said, "Birds of a feather flock together and found each other." Yeah.
Is there the limit to your vision? Because Helen Doron methodology adjusts to the modern times. So, is there any sky to your?
You mean, is there a sell-by date?
No, I mean, do you see? How far ahead do you see? How far can you predict with your methodology?
Oh, predict? No. But I
She's long-sighted.
Not anymore. Good operation. But I know where I want to go with it, which is very much in the direction of the kindergartens and the pre-kindergartens and the creches, because I think that's where the greatest value is. Because we have these wonderful courses for fitness, for science, for multilingualism, the same song, for 4-year curriculum, the same songs in 7 different languages, the major language families, and so many. And I think that these are, and I want to do a survey about this, I think you see these kids coming out, they're contented, humorful. In case those of you who don't know me well, I'm also a very strong advocate for plant-based eating. And I think that's an important thing to introduce to children from an early age, because up to the age of 4 is where you gain your eating habits. And if you've been brought up on Diet Cola and white bread and steaks and things, you're going to have a hard time. The average person has a hard time adjusting. But if you bring in a diet which is good for the planet, good for the children and good for the animals at an early age, we're influencing the world as well. So that's all part of my message and my values. It's not. It doesn't. I think this is very important for children to understand too, at an early age, that they have this opportunity of seeing this, and parents have the opportunity of learning about healthy eating. So, because it's life changing. Because people's health is, you are what you eat, as they say in German, man isst, was man isst. And yeah. So my vision ahead is the whole child. Looking at the whole child, and I can only do that I can't do that when they come once a week to a class. They learn English, they learn various values and friendship, etc., etc. But there are so many more courses and so many more things they can do to be healthy, happier, brilliant children. And that's what I would like to see, much more than anything else. I know that my son has a different vision. He believes in all that, and he says we'll always need that. Doesn't matter how technological, people are going to need somewhere to leave their kids during the day. So, so that will always be there. But he has ideas of a social network and a metaverse in which the kids will meet us in as well. He said that's really needed. So that's something we're exploring. So yes, we are looking at technology as well, which is going far beyond the technology we're into, and it's something that's being worked on at present to see whether or not it's something that's viable.
I just want to say that I studied psychology in the past, and I loved your presentation, and if I had had a professor like you at university, I would have enjoyed it a great deal more, so thank you so much, because that was really on point, and I love that. I just love psychology. I love the neuroscience behind it all, and it was a pleasure to listen to it again and you know, have it come from such a celebrity like yourself.
Thank you. If there's no more questions, I'd just like to say thank you very much for receiving me here, and I've enjoyed it very much. I was first here in Krakow in 1999? 8 or 2000? 2000. Our very first franchise partner in the world, working with Joanna, was Mariusz. Very, very first. I remember coming to go over the terms with Joanna and then move on to Mariusz. Almost didn't make it because got on the wrong train in Prague. But made it, and we sat till 3 in the morning going over, and then sat with Mariusz at 8 in the morning, and the rest is history. You have how many centres in Krakow?
Four.
4 centres in Krakow. And they've been there for over 20 years now. Amazing. Okay, so thank you everyone. Thank you. Bye. I'm very appreciative. Thank you.